Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. Thursday, day of Ukraine with big activities. Bakhmut, the city falls. Zelensky is missing in action. Zelensky is probably in a deep coma. What's happening to this country? Let's understand with Major General Prabdeep Singh. Sir, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, and thank you once again, Aadi, for having me on the show. It's wonderful to be back and discuss Ukraine as usual on a Thursday night here in India. Uh, yeah, lots happening in Ukraine. Bakhmut fallen in ruins. The
Terrible.
Wagner Group, the Wagner
Look
Group
behind me.
apparently moving out, and I think they've started moving out already. I fail to recognize this particular aspect. We'll discuss this. Uh, then, of course, we have the issue of F-16s being, okayed by the Americans, and the coalition building up as far as the F-16s are concerned. Then we have yesterday's statement again, once again, that Ukraine, there is no likelihood of Ukraine joining NATO till as long as the war is on. So that's a big development. Zelensky, as you just said, has been all over the world, and and then you have these raids, cross-border raids, which are taking place in the areas of, in the northern areas of what's this place called Belgorod.
I
Yeah,
hope they didn't
so
take the idea from you, sir.
I think they did. I think they did. This particular Belgorod, or if you look at the distance from where these guys have ventured into Russia, into the Russian territory, and from there to Moscow is just about 600 kilometers. I
Yep.
mean, it is the shortest way, and I guess we had spoken about it earlier. Uh, so things are kind of getting more and more interesting. The Russians letting in a whole lot of missiles and a whole lot of drones. The Rusi report predicts saying that about 330 drones per day are being shot down or being brought down by the Russians. And Of course, they have praised the capability, the EW capability, electronic warfare capability of the Russians, that we acknowledge in any case. So, and then on the American front, we have some lots of spares of F-35s gone missing. So all these things are making the entire world an interesting place to be in. Thankfully, we are in India, uh, where we are only focused on the path towards growth and not getting into such issues, and not getting entangled into such issues. Of course, uh, we had a large amount of praise being given to our Prime Minister during his visit to, the South Pacific. His visits there have been really remarkable. His visit to Australia has been commendable. So, on one side, India is on the rising path. On the other side, we have the Americans going down, and the Europe also, rebelling. The Germans have already announced today that the recession is set in. So, all these things are actually quite interesting. So, as we go along, it'll be worthwhile to study the entire geopolitical landscape as a whole. Because today we are looking at Ukraine, just about Ukraine, but this Ukraine war, at least during our lifetime and maybe for the next generation, will be the turning point in one of the turning points in history, where
History.
actually NATO uh, went into a proxy war uh, with the Russians. All this while it was Cold War. In the Cold War, one had thought that it was going to be Cold War 2.0, but this Cold War 2.0 actually has manifested into a proxy war of a scale which is unheard of. So when you look at it, and when you hear the Western leaders talk about it, they do not admit the Russian concerns, but they do term Russia as an aggressor. So without understanding the the dynamics, the Russian dynamics, and the Russian logic for having gone into Ukraine is not being understood. That's being ignored totally, and the aggression part of it is just seen. That is as if nothing happened before February 2022.
Hmm. History started
Uh,
on that day.
yeah, so these Minsk Accords, etc., they've all gone into oblivion. They're not being spoken about. Perhaps they were not meant to be. So large amount of destruction and large amount of deaths have taken place, which is quite sad. And the even sadder part of it is that there is no end in sight, because the West has vowed uh, to fight till the last Ukrainian and somewhat teach the Russians a lesson. I don't know, uh, as I see it, it's they hell bent upon fighting the Russians, and they are there for the long haul. And they're talking about even today the Jens Stoltenberg of NATO, the chief. He's been talking about the ramping up the defense production and assisting and the defense industry. They're calling a meeting of the defense industries as to how they can combine their effort and get the industry going. So when I hear such things, what comes to my mind is that what is happening today is of no consequence. They're looking at something, uh, maybe 2024. 2023 seems to be, they're looking for a pause, and they will let Russia do what it wants to do, keep him in check, and are preparing for the long haul towards 2024 and maybe even beyond for the next 3 years. So things are scary. Then we, of course, have the news of the defense minister, the Russian defense minister, going across to the Belarus and wanting and signing certain treaties or documents which are going to allow the placement of tactical nuclear weapons on Belarusian soil. And as it is, this was being talked about earlier, and it was said so that by June the tactical nuclear weapons would be there. So we are towards the end of May. Documents have been signed, and we will soon find all these missiles, etc., being the uh, nuclear capable missiles being deployed in Belarus. So things are getting a little murkier, and the United Nations, of course, is just keeping quiet. And I don't know. The relevance of the UN seems to have depleted to a great extent. Yeah,
I was going to ask the who, sir.
sorry.
I was going to ask the who, sir. I mean, I haven't
God
heard
bless.
anything from them. Sir, first thing. Let's talk about Bakhmut. I mean, you told us something which sticks with me quite often whenever I think about Ukraine, is that the entire effort of the Ukrainians, and there's a whole list of brigades, about 50-60,000 troops, is what Ukrainians have suffered as losses in Bakhmut. If that is the losses, what is the kind of troops that they had put in? We know it's a junction point and this and that and the other, but was it really worth that much? 50,000 troops gone. You've lost, I don't know how much weaponry, and it's unbelievable. The city is, of course, finito.
This Bakhmut, you see, I always maintained that this was a trap, and the Ukrainians fell for it. And if if you go back in time, and I mentioned that had they been smart, they would have just left a few troops over there to deter the Russians and deployed their troops elsewhere. You know, strategic disengagement from the battlefield is very important. When you get caught in a situation where you're in a meat grinder, the best is to not get into the grinding machine. But as you realize that the Russians had already, always left the back door open, and they wanted more and more troops to come in. Now the Ukrainians are looking at it in another way. They said that were able to kind of, suck in so much of Russian forces in Bakhmut. I mean, they're thinking the opposite, not realizing that what they were facing were Russian prisoners, the Wagner force.
30,000, 35,000.
Yeah. So, as far as Russia was concerned, it was a very smart move. Now, now that it has fallen, uh, if you look at certain images and certain videos, you will find that where the Ukrainians are, they're basically in the field. They're in the open today, and that is how the Russians are able to take them on, taking on pinpoint targets. The Russians have occupied I mean, they've gone to the furthermost edge of the city itself, and the Ukrainians are in the open. Now, of course, they are desperate and they are going to be launching a large number of counter attacks and things like that, which any army makes an effort to get a foothold back. So the local counter attacks shall continue, but one must realize that it is very difficult for those troops which are in the open, in the fields, or if you see there along, certain railroads and canals, etc. So they're easily detected and they can be taken on. Actually, as I see it, they would be soon encircled if they are not if they're not moving out. Now, what intrigues me today is, where are the Wagner forces headed? It cannot be that, Bargazan,
Yeah.
this junk is just pulling out his troops and saying, "Thank you very much. I'm going back. I'm going on a holiday and come back again." That's not happening. There has to be a game plan. These have been handed over to another militia group, and certain the Russian army is also there, of course. But it cannot happen. So I kind of fear that they will, yes, do a little bit of rest, recoup, and then they'll be deployed elsewhere. Now, elsewhere is what is the
Slavyansk,
question.
Kramatorsk.
Yes. So let us see as to how they progress.
Another urban
The
battle.
Russian, yeah. What is interesting is that the Russians, when as soon as they have taken over from, as soon as they've taken over from the Wagner forces, the new troops which have come in, they've carried forward the momentum.
Hmm.
They are not just occupying defenses; they are again still maintaining the offensive. So that is something. So Bakhmut is history, and of course, some commentators and some write-ups are there that Bakhmut will soon now get encircled by the Ukrainians.
Been trying
And
that.
let's see. I don't think so. Anything like that is happening. Of course, apparently, as per some reports, the counteroffensive started a few days back, and I don't know where it started. It doesn't seem to be visible. So Bakhmut is the old what, Stalingrad
Hmm.
is what they're saying. 9 months it took time to take a city. So if the Russians had been smart, they would have just cut it off and moved ahead. Perhaps the ground conditions did not permit that, and they were forced to clear it.
Yeah, and they opened a meat grinder, so they got
Yeah,
what they wanted at the end of it.
correct. But the Ukrainians have suffered a large amount of casualties. I mean, they're talking about 50,000 killed, as far as that is as per Russian estimates. 50,000 killed and 70,000 wounded, which is hell of a lot.
I mean,
Yeah,
couple of the regular observers of the war have kind of mentioned the same figure. So these guys have been pretty spot on right from the beginning. So just this thing. So let's talk about this raid in Belgorod. I mean, this was very interesting. We talked about this raid 2 weeks ago on our channel, and here goes a couple of so-called Russian Legion of
yeah.
Liberation, something, something, something. They carried
Freedom
a,
of Russia.
yeah,
Yeah.
something.
No, you see, now let's take this from a military perspective. You want, when you're fighting an enemy, you want to engage him on all fronts. You want to create trouble for him on all fronts, and you find a weakness and you exploit it. You go back to World War II, where you had the underground, you had the French underground and whatnot. So it's a similar situation here. So you will always, your intelligence agencies are always meant to also create some kind of underground movement within the country, within the enemy's country. And this can only be done through guerrillas, through irregular forces, and this is precisely what has been done. So this is nothing very new, if I may say so. Uh, Both these two organizations have been created only last year. This what do you call the Freedom of Russian Legion. There are
Hmm.
two of them:
Hmm.
Freedom of Russian Legion and the Russian Volunteer uh, Corps. Now, when you look at it, this Russian Volunteer Corps was created last August. So it's just a few months back. The other one, which we're talking of, the Freedom of Russian Legion, was found in the spring of 2022. So around a year back. So one is about 9, 10 months old. The other one is about a year old. What does that mean? That means that they were purposefully propped up. And where do they have to create conditions where, as I said, that's the nearest route towards Moscow. So that is where these people have been inserted, and they are the ones who are creating trouble. Now, as you have seen, you would have seen those pictures where the Humvees, etc., were all blown up. Now, what does that mean? It means that the Humvees, they were totally equipped by the Ukrainians with anything and everything which they were getting from their allies. So while the direct involvement of the United States is not there, the equipment which has been funded, given by the United States to Ukraine, has been passed on by Ukraine to these underground rebels. Now, do you take them as rebels? They are not ragtag. You know, when you look at the pictures and you look at them, they are an organized force, properly in proper uniform. They walked in with tanks, they walked in with armored fighting vehicles, and they walked in with Humvees, etc. So the fact of the matter remains that it's an organized force, and it has been deliberately organized, equipped, and sent with a purpose to create panic and chaos behind enemy lines. This is a good tactics, and it'll happen in any war whenever it takes place. So I don't want to go back to 1971 and talk about Bangladesh, because these kind of movements do take place. Now the Ukrainians say we have got nothing to do with it. They are Russians. Yes, they are Russians, but Ukrainian citizens. You see, there's a difference. While one of them, that is the RVC, the Russian Volunteer Corps, he says that we've got nothing to do with what do you call, we are Russians. They're claiming to be Russians, but they are Russians of with Ukrainian citizenship, right? Now, when you look at the other one, that is the Freedom of Russian Legion. Now, they have been saying that we are operating under the command of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Yeah, they've
They've
said very.
they've said that. So this is routine. Now they are people who've been sent behind enemy lines, create chaos, blow up bridges, blow up, whatever forces coming in. Uh, I mean, the train movement, the railway movement has to be disruptive. Oil tankers have to be blown up. So these are guerrilla forces. Uh, in any war, this would happen. Now, the direction that they've chosen is, of course, which is of concern to Russia. And some places it's mentioned it's a ploy to take their, divert attention from Bakhmut. No, no, it's not like that. It's not to divert the attention of Bakhmut from Bakhmut, but it is to ensure that the forces, the Russian army gets dissipated. It is deployed for various duties. I mean, so this is the trick that happens. Now Russia is forced to look into these elements also, and so deploy a certain amount of force to tackle this. So these are diversionary tactics, and it would happen in any organized war. Yeah,
So, but the size of the force that went inside, that to me was a little weird. The 90, 100 men. What were you trying? What was your objective? Just to create some chaos and come back? And that also your return ratio is really bad. So, suicide mission.
absolutely, because the Ukrainian armed forces today are not. I mean, the Americans are pushing this. It's the NATO which is pushing it. I won't be surprised if the CIA is, involved. I won't be surprised
Ah,
if the MI6 is involved, and they are the ones pushing for such kind of an activity which must take place. And the handful of people they've sent in, okay, go create chaos. But this is not the way you go in. If you wanted to go in, you would have gone in without tanks and without. You would have gone on foot. You would
it
have
was
been
too visible.
inserted behind.
Yeah.
You would have gone inside on foot in civil clothes as a militia and caused trouble. So, you know, as a resistance force. But this is not the way you go in. I think the application, the concept may be right, but the application here, when I look at it,
It's
uh,
terrible.
is quite terrible. They're somehow living in the past.
Hmm.
When I say living in the past, is that retreat or the way they thought they have been able to rout the Russians in the beginning, that the Ukrainians are very brave and they've been able to throw them back and things like that. I think that's a misconception and kind of I feel surprised as to how they fail to read the situation.
So, let's talk about Zelensky, sir. What's up with him? I mean, there are now. Last week
Yeah,
we discussed. EU told him, "Listen, pal." EU, some countries told him, "Listen, pal, you gotta go now." And this was, as a matter of fact, Seymour Herschel's article on this is, and his interview I actually saw where he said this. Very insightful. Secondly, he is not going to Ukraine, sir. He reached there for 2 days, then ran away. Then what's up with him?
he knows his days are numbered, right, from the very beginning.
Is this connected
So
to Zelensky and a coup attempt or something, sir?
that is one. There are reports saying that he's the one who gave the coordinates to the Russians, right, of Zelensky, and that's how he got targeted, and that's how he's gone or he's incapacitated. So that is one. Now he is living under tremendous amount of fear. Now I was just reading. There have been more than a dozen assassination attempts on him. Yes,
Wow.
and that, yeah, officially three, but a statement by one of the ministers is that there have been more than a dozen attempts on him since last year,
Hmm.
and Russia had already deployed about 300 odd Wagner forces inside and with the task of knocking him off. So this is the kind of threat that he's living in. And as days go by, obviously the threat onto his life is more and more. And the beauty of the whole thing is, while he's being pushed to get more and more Ukrainians killed, the people, the European forces or the European governments, quite a few of them are quite fed up with all this. I mean, it's pure notanki. It's pure drama. I don't know what NATO wants and what EU wants. Sometimes when they're together, they speak the same language. Individually, they speak a different language, right? So obviously, when Germany, Hungary, and all these countries, they're talking different languages. Everybody is worried about their economy. But when they get together, they say, yeah, 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 we must sort out Ukraine. After all, we must assist Ukraine because Russia has stepped in and Ukraine has been suppressed. So it seems to me like a child's play. It's not a very well thought of action. So the point that I'm coming to is that a large amount of people, of the Europeans, are disgruntled. They are unhappy with the idea of the war. Governments are unhappy with the idea of this war because it's hurting their stomachs. So the day is not very far with first you request him to resign. If it does not happen, then what do? Desperation could lead to something else. So he knows this. Now I just got out the statistics as to how many visits has Zelensky made,
Mhm.
right? So 2019, he made 13 visits. 20, he made 12 visits. 21, he made 11 visits. 22, he made only 3 visits. And 23 till now, he's made 13 visits outside. He's visited 13 different countries.
And these are long visits. These are not like one day trips and all.
Yeah. So, like the month of May, and you rightly said, in the month of May, he's visited Finland, Netherlands, Italy, the Vatican, Germany, France, UK, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Japan. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. 8 countries between the 3rd of May and 20th of May. And the rest of the time, of course, is transiting. So then you got to see that these are official meets. Then there's the transit time also, and then there's a little holiday also, which I'm sure he's taking. Now, is it out of fear of being knocked off way back home, or is it that he's stashing away his cash that he's got, or is it you know? And in any case, everywhere he's going appealing. Europe is a threat. I mean, you got to help Ukraine because if you don't help Ukraine, many other countries will go. So this is kind of absurd. He is trying to appeal. I mean, you know what he did? He went to UAE and he appealed to the Arab world. Now that has to be immediately countered by the Russians. So they sent their own defense minister there, or the interior minister there, to see as to what to pacify the Saudis. The point here is that this gentleman is going out all over, uh, bad mouthing Russia and appealing to the world that I need your sympathy and I need your money and I need your air defense, your weapons, and everybody is buying into it. So that is the best part of it. And incidentally, as per their website, he's scheduled to visit India as well. And the date is not yet decided. So he's scheduled to visit India, Israel, Romania, Kazakhstan, and Brazil. That's what is there in his itinerary of programs are being fixed. So he's hardly staying in the country.
He's going to
He's
Brazil,
most
sir?
Yeah, he's going to go to Brazil also. He's going to
Lula
go to
hates him.
Kazakhstan. Yeah, so he's going to try and pacify him, perhaps. It's basically what they're trying to do is uh, they know Russia and China is out. So Brazil, they have to kind of pacify. They have to pacify India or whatnot. I don't know. Pacify or what? Or win over. I would say not pacify is not the right word. Win over India. So
What,
in
Zelensky has
future,
now become the Chanda boss of Ukraine? I mean,
someone stated, and which he took offense to was the traveling circus. I think it was in France that one of it came
France.
up on the television that after his visit to France that the traveling circus, and of course they took offense to it, and then thereafter they sought an apology, but I did not see any apology coming.
French
Uh,
apologies.
yeah. So and interestingly, he's been visiting Poland every year once or twice.
Hmm.
So Poland is the most visited country.
The flying happens from there only, no? So he has to go by train to
Yeah,
Poland and
yeah.
then
So
fly out from there.
from there he has to. So
So
let's see.
was there a coup attempt again? Because a lot of people are saying that he, as you said, that this guy gave the coordinates. Or I mean, I'm sure the
You
Russians would
see,
have found it out, but
yeah, because uh, in a situation like this, you have a person who does not understand military tactics, right? He's a comedian by profession. He's not a politician. He's coming in 2019. Now it's 2023. 19 to 23, 4 years is what he's been learning to govern a nation. uh, Military operations and military minds work differently, and those in the military and senior officers understand what it is all about and how it has to be fought, and they would not want to be dictated because of somebody's whims and fancies. So I'm sure there was a lot of discontent as far as Bakhmut was concerned,
hmm,
right? And he's becoming maybe a little too autocratic and dictating terms that I want you to do this and I want you to do that. That kind of a situation with the armed forces would not take so lightly when it comes, and it's a small country. It's
and
not
it's known for this kind of nonsense.
yeah. So I'm sure there were underpinnings, there were undercurrents, and maybe the plan was exposed, and this gentleman was then knocked off. So a coup must have been in the offing. I mean, if I just read a situation where seeing his actions and getting people killed, enjoying getting people killed, you got to listen to your generals. Your generals, and trust me, the Ukrainians or the Russians or whatever it is, uh, they're pretty.
Good
After all,
fighters.
if there was a senior Ukrainian general, this gentleman would have obviously served in the Russian uh, military as well to some extent, or would be influenced a lot by the Russian military that tactics, etc. After all, that's what they learned. And NATO tactics is something combined arms tactics is something which is not easily mastered
Hmm.
by anybody and everybody. And so I'm sure there was a lot of discontent, and there still is. And we do not know as to who this successor to Zelensky is. So let's see what happens.
My last question, guys, and start firing on your questions. This is becoming an interesting situation. So please do start firing in your questions, and of course, most importantly, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Very very critical. Spread the word. This kind of predictions you will not find anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's eerie that 2 weeks we've said something. You mentioned Odessa and a missile goes into that bridge. You said Belgorod and 90 Ukrainians say yes sir and go into Belgorod. So it's a little eerie that ways. I wonder what my question to you will be, sir. What is your prediction? But before that, guys, if you can, please do contribute to the Dev Talks efforts. You can do that with the QR code or becoming a member or sending us a super sticker. So, what's the prediction?
My
What's
prediction.
happening
Okay.
next?
Okay. Now we haven't discussed two things today, which are important. One is what's happening in the Black Sea. You aware of one of the, the
Unmanned
Ukrainian
boats.
attempt, by these remote control boats, the remote drones, drone ships to blow up one of the Russian ships. You you would have heard of that. Now, the attempt was made. Three drone ships were they tried to ram this ship called what
Ivan
ship?
something.
Yeah. So one of the ships was attempted to be destroyed. Now, when such a thing happens, and then you know what happened thereafter was that the Russians took on these and knocked all three of them out. Uh, we had heard that one of the ports has been they were not allowing the ships to come out with the grains, right? And one of the ports had been what do you call blockaded. Now, when such a thing is happening, the Ukrainian attempted this, and what is happening now is that these the shift towards the sea, Black Sea, is also taking place, right? So the naval warfare is going to assume a little bit of importance for the reason I've already told you earlier, right? So you look for excuses, you knock them off one after the other, and this is where the main battle is going to come about on the sea front, on the naval part of it. Then the other thing is the F-16s.
Hmm.
Now we haven't spoken about the F-16s. When you look at the F-16s, they need about 200 F-16s. That's what they're looking at. Where are they going to get them? Is the question. Is America going to provide them? Uh, what I've read and what I've heard that the F-16s, which are you know uh, MLUs, that is the medium level upgrades, they would be provided. So as a first step, I think 40 are going to be provided by one of the
Netherlands.
countries,
Netherlands.
Netherlands. The Netherlands is going to provide 40 of them, right? Now, you can have any amount of aircraft. The issue of maintenance. 1 hour of flying requires 16 hours of maintenance. While you may be able to produce a pilot, the technicians are not easy to produce. So that is one. Second is the runways. These are all exposed. Where are they going to be parked? It's not so easy, possessing aircraft. You got to have camouflaged hangars. You got to have smooth runways. You got to have advanced landing grounds. You have to have alternatives. You ought to be conserving your force. So either they will take off from Poland. If they take off from Poland and then they come into Ukraine, well, then Poland is a direct party to it. So these are issues which are going to be
Who's gonna
there.
fly them, sir?
Yeah, who's going to fly them? You got 200 aircraft. We have the pilots. Okay, you have the pilots. Fine. Are they well trained? 3 months of training is not good enough. I mean, I've also flown and I can also say I could fly a Sukhoi, but I'd be damned if I say that I'm a fighter pilot, right?
Or
I just
you
had
can fly as Sukhoi, but flying into combat.
Yeah.
uh,
So those are the kind of issues. So we will have to study that. Now, the air battle is not being talked about because F-16s are not there. We're in Indian parlance we say हवा में बात कर रहे हैं.
hmm.
Right now it's on all it's in we're just talking like that. So F-16 is not yet there. The second very interesting thing which is happening here is the number of drones from going in from the Russian side, and the number of drones going into apparently from Ukraine into the Russian side. Both sides, Ukraine's. Now let's see the motive. Ukrainian drones getting into Russian territory, they're being downed because to as an anti-drone warfare, either you physically target the drone, or you cut out its communication. After all, it's being controlled remotely from the ground, so that communication, so you sever that communication and that thing loses control, and that is precisely what is happening. Or you confuse the daylights of the communication, and those drones go haywire and they land. So those kind of things are happening. That electronic warfare element of the Russians is extremely good. They're bloody good at it. So the Ukrainian drones are going for a six. The next thing is, how are they? How are the Ukrainians tackling the Russian drones? Right. What is interesting is that it is only deep inside that these air defense is able to bring the drones down, not near the battlefront. So what does it mean? Either they are conserving their air defense next to the battlefront, or they don't have any. Right? Either they're deliberately letting these drones go in deep and then taking them in, like Kiev and all that. They have their air defense systems deployed. Now, why I say it's interesting is, you see the number of effort in terms of missiles, etc., which would be fired to bring these drones down, right? If they're being physically fired, because I have not heard that electronic warfare is being used to down these drones. So, if physical firing is taking place, what is it? What is happening? The ammunition is getting depleted.
Absolutely.
The ammunition reserves are going down. The air defense battery is let loose the moment drones come in. Okay, you knock down, I sent 30, you knocked down 29, good. But how much of ammo did you fire to bring down those 29? Even if you fire 29 missiles to counter it, or you spend 29 missiles.
Waste.
So the Russians are actually training them like this. And sooner or later, they're going to run out of air defense. When they run out of air defense, they do not have their F-16s. That's where the Russian aircraft are going to come in. And they're going to come in over land and over sea. And then the fun will start.
May I also add, so the Russians have S-500s, which they've recently tested, which are autonomous. They don't need human intervention.
So
They
that
pick up
that
signals
is
and
another, right. At the moment, they're looking at S-300s and 400s, right?
so
So
the kind of
once they got,
integrated air defense system is what the Russians are working with right now.
so in my opinion, the air and the land, as of now, whatever is happening, the grinders, etc., that will continue, and
But the air
sooner or
battle,
later, we will see a lot of activity from the air and from the sea, with the aim of reaching up to the river line, and the south taking on all these ports. So that's my prediction. These chutputs, these small instances, incursions into Russian territory will continue to happen, and I'm afraid the long-term plan that the NATO and the EU are making to counter Russia, they may get a little, they may
jolt.
run out of time. They're moving a bit slow, and they're forced to run slow because their production is not happening.
I
The
mean,
ammunition has
this
got
thing came out
depleted. The
about
weapons.
yeah, this thing came up about the Patriots, Nasser, that they can only make 2,000 odd missiles a year, and the Ukrainians fired 30 in 1.5 minutes.
That's what happens. I mean, they let loose everything and everything. The entire battery let loose. So Let's see. In
They're
in
all
the in military parlance, when you're fighting, fire control. We have a term called fire control. You have to exercise extremely good fire control. Your fire control measures and systems have to be in place. You only use that much of ammo that as is required.
required. Mm.
Economy of effort. Yeah.
It's amazing, sir, that the game just keeps going on and on and on, and Zelensky keeps making these promises that, oh, we will do this, we will do that, we will do this, we will do that, and the incursion into Russia, he had mentioned it in an interview to the Washington Post that got printed 2 weeks. I mean, just I think 3 4 days 3 days before this incursion happened, that we have plans to do this and this thing. That's another big problem. So there's too much talking in this war. The Russians keep quiet. That's there.
No, there's
The
another one saying that today, yeah. There's another one which says that there are at least dozen uh, places where the counter-offensive will go in, and it will not be a single counter-offensive. I don't know if you want to. I think people are right. Not they're off their mind because dozen counter-offensives means the amount of troops being used or the force which is behind them.
relatives.
These are all shallow offensives,
Hmm.
and with shallow offensives, what do you achieve? You're not going to achieve. So when how when you have to break in, you have to break in into a particular defensive line, secure the shoulders, and push in the major force. Wherever you get a break in, first you get a break in, then you ensure that you have secured that area, and once you have secured that area, and that is where your major movement of the major force takes place. But if you are going to scatter all your forces, then you're going to get nothing worthwhile. And this is
And
today's state.
against defenses that the Russians have taken almost 6 months to prepare,
Yeah,
seems a
I
little,
had this. Yeah.
you know.
Next time I will try and show you the defense lines, the maps of the defense lines. Very interesting.
Let's get
Yeah.
into some questions, sir. The first one, he says, Russia used Kinzhal, its latest technology. Has it erred by revealing its capabilities to the West in a proxy fight? Can we expect the West also to up its game tech-wise?
Yes, till now, it's a good question. As of now, the hypersonic missile technology uh, had not been tested. And we were always worried about the Chinese doing a lot of testing and talking about it. Uh, the Americans, yes, but there was not much talk about the Americans' hypersonic missiles under production. Or but suddenly you have the Russians coming up and proving their technology.
Hmm.
So now this is a cause of concern for the West, and definitely they will up their tech game because they've been caught with their pants down as far as this technology is concerned. And we will soon have more and more hypersonic missiles being produced by many nations. Yes, definitely.
They said
But then
that
they had to use it. They had to test it. They've done it. And what were they waiting for? They were waiting for a war, and the war has happened, and so they used it.
the Russians gave the tech to the Chinese.
Yeah, they would. Why not? The Chinese actually, I mean, were testing it long time back. So you know, they were doing it.
So Rishi Karan says General Sir's prediction was bang on. I would request, sir, if he could enlighten us about anti-mobility defenses like Band. Heard that these Humvees and all
Humvees.
that stuff was stuck in the ditches during the raid.
Yeah, because what happens is When you I don't remember the kind of uh, dimensions now, but in the army, when you are making a defensive line, it's with a purpose. The dimensions are very well thought of. You do not want a tank to just go
Drive.
across. Now, if you guys have seen even movies, if not actuals, that the tank just goes or a vehicle just goes by. Uh, Vehicles, of course, Humvee is not so easy, but a tank definitely. If there is a ditch, the tank driver, he doesn't think about it. He just goes, right. We are only scared of wells, okay, blind wells. We are not scared of ditches. So that is one. So what are you when these ditches are prepared? They are prepared with the view that the tank should not be able to in one go cross it. He has to get stuck. There has to be a requirement of a bridge laying tank. A bridge has to be laid by something called a BLT, that is a bridge laying tank, for to assist the tanks to go across. And let me tell you, it requires a lot of practice for a tank driver to go across the BLT also. Firstly, laying of the BLT, and then they have to practice, going across the on that BLT on the bridge. So uh, these kind of defenses are prepared in mind, keeping in mind the size of a tank. That is one. There are canals, which all canals, where anywhere, whether it is Europe, whether it is India, whether it is Pakistan and elsewhere, all canals which are along the borders are cleared by the defense Ministry of Defense, because they have to have those specific specifications for a particular purpose. I just told you a BLT. So bridge layer tank, he lays a bridge which has a specific, you know,
Size.
size. So we'll make sure that the canal is bigger than that. So if the enemy has to lay a bridge from a tank, he's unable to lay it. So then there are ways that they lay it like this. One bridge is laid like this, goes into the water. The other one is then laid, and then the tank goes through it. So it's very scientific. It's very technical. And then of course you have proper bridges being laid in 45 minutes. The engineers can lay a bridge, right, up to a certain dimension.
Wow.
45 minutes, 1 hour. I mean, these are
45 minutes.
timings they keep practicing laying of bridges. The point I'm trying to make here is that these are all well thought of. So a Humvee, etc., would get stuck. Yeah, so you've seen that picture of the Humvee, with the nose down. Some say that photograph is morphed because there's no dirt on the
Tires are
tires.
too.
Tires are too clean. So in today's world, nothing can be predicted. Today's AI, uh, all those who are working on AI, you will find it so interesting.
I
You go
actually
to
wanted to write to one guy that, buddy, what guarantee is it that you've not cleaned the tires before?
no, 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 no. If you know Photoshop today has got a AI function.
Hmm.
The paid Photoshop, there's an AI function, and you can have any background and you can put anything in any time, anywhere. You just have to take a picture and then twist it the way you want it, and the AI works. You say Humvee in a ditch. Go to Photoshop and say Humvee in a ditch. That Humvee in a ditch will appear within few seconds. So yeah,
Sir, there's a report number of troops lost by the Ukrainians close to three divisions of India. Now with Bakhmut under Russia, how will Russia will now have logistical advantage to launch attack deep into Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, equivalent to three divisions, 17, 50,000. Yeah. So about 50,000 troops have been lost. Now, uh, three divisions is a hell of a lot equivalent, and three divisions is what it makes to in Indian army parlance. It's about a core offensive
Mm.
would be launched by about this much kind of troops. So the fact is that they have lost, and so have the Russians lost. It's not that. Don't please do not ignore the fact that the Russians also lost a lot of troops.
Yeah.
Maybe the ratio is 1:7. For one Russian soldier lost, the seven Ukrainian lives have been lost, or whether they are wounded or killed. So the ratio is 1:7 in this particular kind. Now, logistically, Russia is always strong. I mean, Russia is a well organized army today as compared to the Ukrainians. Ukrainians have lost the regular troops in the earlier phases. They didn't have a big army. They lost a lot of troops in the initial phases. Then they have got basically, anybody and everybody
Mm.
who it's a volunteer of kind of a force. Doctors are fighting, and engineers are fighting, and politicians are fighting. Uh, so obviously they're not well organized, and that's where the NATO comes in, and NATO is trying to teach them as to how to fight. It'll take them a lot of time. So that is why the timelines being given is about another. I'm saying another year minimum for the Ukrainians to get together and be able to fight. So Russia is definitely at an advantage, whether it is operational or logistics.
So Rahul asks, will Russia try to capture Kiev once again? So-called civilized West, where there are more warmongers than so-called Third World, and still lecture us on human rights and democracy? Well, the second part is still going to happen,
Yeah,
but
this
will Russia
we
try
don't
to
have
capture
the
Kiev?
second part. The first part, yes. The As far as Kiev is concerned, today's statement: nuclear weapons in Belarus. How far is Belarus from Kiev? Uh, so when weapons are moving to Kiev, so are troops moving to Kiev towards. I'm sorry, to Belarus. So when the weapons move to Belarus, a large amount of force will also move to Belarus, and I'm sure there is some force, at least one division plus or so already in Belarus.
They say 100,000,
And
sir.
so if there's 100,000 troops already in Belarus, so uh, the day I've got the ports, I've damaged all the ports, and I've got a sea blockade in. If the moment I've got that, the moment I've got air superiority, the moment the air defense systems are down, uh, and the moment more and more incursions are taking place on Russian soil, what stops me from coming again?
Correct.
Why not?
Abs-
At the end of it all, I want to be. I want to capture the capital, and the moment I do that, that's where victory lies. So, in my opinion, this is a big possibility, and this will happen. If not today, but by definitely before the winters, an attempt would be made.
Next question: how far deep can the Russians theoretically, militarily go?
Militarily, it depends on the time they can continue. I mean, what is their war aim? Their war aim is to split Ukraine, and when you split Ukraine, there has to be a very, very highly demarcated border. So, in my opinion, max they will go up is to the river line, the Dnieper river line, and militarily, it's not easy because every town, every village is going to be a grinding, uh, you know, a meat grinder, so to say.
Unless they start doing movements.
Unless the Ukrainians panic and they start leaving those places. When will the Ukrainians panic? When they know that there is no ammunition coming, when they know that logistically they are not covered, when they know that there is no air support, and that is the time that panic will set in, and then they will move in. Because if it starts, if the back rearward movement starts,
Then
it will happen very fast.
very fast.
Just remember this: the day it starts is going to happen very, very fast. Bakhmut then would have been just an exception. The building of the line on Chasavyar, and we will see the next battle building up there. And by that time, they would have gained, of, you know, 20, 30 kilometers already. So long haul, but once the rearward movement starts, it's going to be exceptionally fast. So
Yeah.
maximum they will go up to the line, river line.
That
At least,
line is also Chasavyar line is also flat, sir.
yeah, it's all flat. It's
So
all
that's
flat.
spicy. As you were saying, that flat is going to be difficult.
You see, flat is difficult. The moment you're in open areas, you easily detect it. You may try any camo net and all that. That is all notanki because the heat, the IR sensors, the
Mm.
you get picked up. Then your Tekken picks you up. Your electronic warfare comes into play. All this happens. So you get picked up. You'll get knocked off very fast.
So why don't we hear about the Baraktar drones nowadays? Are they all down?
No,
So,
we never said they are down. They're being employed along with the Iskandar missiles. They are being employed. They're not down.
no, the ones that the Turkish had given Ukraine, sir.
Oh, the you see, Turkey is given them a finite amount, and I'm sure that is down
All gone.
because what they now we are talking about are the commercial drones which are being flown by the Ukrainians. So Turkey also has a limit. So let's see. The question is very valid. We've not been hearing about them.
Hmm. There was actually, if I may add to this, I did a show with General Shokin Chauhan about this. He said there was a bit of a fault that the front undercarriage of the thing, it's a front lift undercarriage. When it would lift up, it would hit the camera. So the camera is in front, and so they could not lift up the front undercarriage. That was fixed, and because of that reason, the cross section was very large. It was getting picked up very easily, actually. So that was probably one of the reasons, sir.
So most of the technical part of it. Yeah.
So, Jack Sparrow. Sir, at the start of the war, many American companies left operations in Russia. Did they actually leave from orders of the USA, or were they forced out by Russia? They've not left.
No,
All the biggest luxury brands are there, sir. Moscow streets. I've just recently got photographs. Versace, Hugo Boss, this, that, everyone is there.
yes, it's all about money, and but there are many companies did leave.
Food
Many
companies,
companies,
yes.
yeah, they did suspend operations. We off late, which was the latest company which is shutting up operations. Anyway, so if they left on the orders from Russia, from the United States. They were not forced out of by Russia. Russia is not going to force them to go. So it's the Americans who would say that thank you very much, you got to come back, and they are pressurized. So that is happening, and that has happened always. As far as the commercial entity is concerned, they don't want to pull out their this thing operations. So they would have been forced by the Americans. Yeah,
This one you will like, sir. Tagda raho. How long
I
the
Amitabh.
conflict go on?
Amitabh is a good friend of mine, so he's there. How long will the conflict go on? You tell me. You're the person who should be telling me. Uh, Amitabh, you know it. So it'll continue till the last Ukrainian. That's what the NATO wants, and I think it'll continue for another 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
3 years. It's not ending
Means
soon.
you're gonna be basically talking about a land with holes which look like the moon by the end of it.
Yeah, they want to destroy. Their total aim is defeat of Russia at all costs.
Yeah.
So, but the Russians will go up to the river line. There'll be a pause. Meanwhile, these guys will start building up again. They'll take Ukraine into the NATO fold. There'll be a so-called buffer zone for some time, and then once they are equipped and well armed and well trained, and defense production is on target, it'll resume again. This will continue. Ukraine is inconsequential.
So, how effective is the American Patriot system been? A lot was being talked about this system early on, but we don't get to hear much about it now.
Well, I think it's not been very effective. Had it been effective, we would have, heard of it, as you said, even more. We are not hearing of the
But sir,
Patriot system.
reportedly, it shot down some 26 Kinzhal missiles, which again nobody
No,
talks about anymore.
no. Kinzhal missiles 26. Uh, that's what the Russians have been laughing. We haven't fired so many as you brought down. So, and we do know that the Patriot system was damaged, and there is no talk of it. The last 10 days or so, we haven't heard any talk about the Patriot missile system. I think they either it's been moved out or it has been put under cold storage. So it was meant to be effective. It hasn't proven to be effective against the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. Uh, because if you saw the videos, the number of missiles, it let loose to tackle these missiles which are coming in, which were a mix of uh, hypersonic and the other
Cruise.
missiles. So they brought down quite a few. So the system would have got confused, not been able to tackle so many, and few of the hypersonic missiles, one or two would have got across, and this entire battery, at least some part of it would have got damaged. So if you say effective, partially effective is what I would say. And if we are not hearing about it, we are not hearing about it because it doesn't seem to be functioning anymore.
So I have an opinion about this question as well, sir. But first, you. Wagner Group chief is talking about a revolution inside Russia. Is he hinting an overthrow of Putin, or is he giving a license to Putin to take the battle further inside Ukraine?
Very good question. Yeah, Wagner Group chief.
He's an
He has.
interesting bugger.
I find this gentleman the most interesting person
Oh,
in the entire battle. He's not hinting at overthrowing Putin. He is he's a what do you call, play hot and play cold at the same time. So he's a badmash.
बहुत बड़ा.
He's a guy who's got political. He's a businessman who's got political ambitions. All that is fine. But will he be able to overthrow Putin? I'm so afraid he cannot do that. It's not going to happen. President Putin is way beyond this gentleman's pay grade. I would just put it this way. So while he may have ambitions, he's going to get nowhere near President Putin. Yes, is he giving license to Putin to take battle further inside Ukraine? Yes, they are playing
He wants
together.
that.
They're playing. There are three players: President Putin. Then you have that Medvedev.
Slovakian.
What is it? The previous president,
Dmitry Medvedev.
Medvedev, and then you have this Bergerson. So these three gentlemen are the ones, and of course, in the back of it is Sergei Lavrov and their spokesman, whatever his name is, Polsky or whatever. So
Hmm.
there's the 4 or 5 gentlemen who are playing the, but these three are the ones who are key.
And on the ground, it's Suruvikin. That guy is,
So you see, ground, you leave the ground. What is happening is there are three spokesmen.
yeah,
Putin is not. Putin is always threatening. Putin is always playing the diplomatic threat.
Aram se, yeah,
Yeah, he's playing the mature man. You have the immature Medvedev or whatever his name is.
Medvedev.
I can never
Medvedev.
pronounce. Yeah, the previous president who's the deputy right now. So he's the one who openly threatens, right? And you have this Wagner chief Bergersen who is always belittling these guys. So what is happening is these three gentlemen confusing the daylights of everybody by maybe making contradictory and threats and contradicting and all that. So basically, as I spoke in the beginning, we really do not know where the Wagner forces are going after Bakhmut. He's going home. I'm so afraid he's not going home.
No,
Are they going back to prison? They're not going back to prison.
no,
Are they going to be allowed to roam around the streets of Moscow free?
no.
No. So they're going to go to battle somewhere else. So at the moment, they've been given a pause, rest and recoup. Another 15 days, and they'll be back again somewhere else. Once the battle is contacted, now what's going to happen is, say, Chasovia, the if the battle is contacted there by the regular Russian army to fight and to do the dirty job, the Wagner forces will be put in again. You got my point? And they'll say, now you clear up this mess. We are focusing elsewhere.
The Chechens have also come in.
Yeah, the Chechens have also come in. So these are the kind of things that they're doing. You say clear up the mess, looting. You can imagine the amount of looting which was going on. I'm just saying, you
Yeah,
know,
European wars, it's normal.
no war is a war, and the war booty is what these people would be, and war booty is not just money. There was so much of gold. There's so much of art. There is so much of everything goes on. So what I'm trying to say, that is why the rogue elements are put into the cities and sort out that, and they're happy doing looting, whether they're
Yeah,
doing it.
Wagner found a wine cellar with 600,000 bottles of wine, sir.
So now you just look at that. So the Russian forces just make contact. These guys come and clear up the mess, and they siphon up a lot of things.
So,
So that is the kind of thing which is going to happen. And of course, they're going to take the battle deeper into Ukraine, and Wagner's not going away.
anyway, last couple, sir. Ashok Emmanuel says there was a talk of Polish forces joining Ukraine's. Is that likely to happen?
Yes and no. When I say
Are they
no,
already there?
yeah, that's what I said. When I say no, because officially they cannot be there. Yes, because they're already there. So, Poland is a very interesting country as far as playing its part very interestingly in this. If you recollect, there were talks of Poland coming into the western part of Ukraine and taking its
Yeah.
share of territory.
Involved.
Yeah. So, is that going to happen? I kind of feel that that is the last resort. Now, when I say last resort is if the war prolongs way beyond the expectation, then Poland will be forced or Poland will be told to reclaim or lay claim on certain territories of Ukraine. Once they have done that, they will declare it as de facto Poland. And once you declare it as de facto Poland, then from there you can launch attacks.
Border is close by. I mean, you've closed the
Borders
border
close.
again.
Yeah. So that is the kind of a thing that I see happening if the war gets prolonged beyond a certain point. Yeah, sure.
Just a comment. It says, "Sir, greetings from Russia. Hope you know I was listening. Hoorah!
Good.
Hoorah!"
I hope it meant it made sense to you in some ways.
I like that. Huh? This is one thing I like about the Russians. That hoorah! That's like, okay, the entire crowd, and they do it in that rhythm. It's quite interesting.
No, I've only had one friend from Russia.
So,
Yeah. What is the West expecting
West
from
expecting
India?
from India. There is no free lunch. What? So what is it that they want? Last question, sir.
What are they expecting out of India? Expecting far too much, and expecting far too much, but getting nothing.
Yeah.
I would put it this way: they would
They're getting
want
oil from us. So we are selling them oil, so they should be happy with that.
that is our Chanakyagiri. That's our business acumen. So that's and trust me, we are way beyond these guys. Way beyond. Our mind is much works much
After.
faster and better. Yeah. So what are they expecting out of us? They're expecting us to join them, play a part of diffusing the situation. Well, we can only diffuse a situation if they are willing to get diffused. In this case, the West is not willing to back up, nor are the Russians going to back out. Russians are not going to back out till they get the minimum gains. The West is not going to back up because they want to teach Russia a lesson. Ukraine doesn't matter. So in this battle, it is well understood that whether it is India, whether it is the African nations, whether it is China, or whether it is the Pope, what we can broker is a temporary peace,
Yeah,
and that's
nothing
about
more.
it.
Freeze
And
the battle.
freeze the battle to a point, uh, but the freeze can only happen, you know, freezes can only happen if both sides are willing to freeze. And today, the only change circumstance or the stance is that Ukraine is today asking for peace. If you go back, they were not ready to compromise till the Russians, stepped back. The only compromise that they have is that the Russia should leave their territory and go back, and only then we will talk peace. But today they're not speaking that language anymore.
Yeah, the media has changed tone a little bit. Yes.
Yes, the Ukrainians have changed the tone, and but now the West is busy pushing. We'll give you weapons. We'll ramp up our production line. We will support you. We will give you everything. You fight. And the Russians are saying, okay, you want to fight? Let's fight.
Hmm.
You want to talk peace? I will only talk peace when I reach my objectives. My objective is split Ukraine. Let me get hold of the entire control of the Black Sea, and then I will perhaps talk.
I think that's going to be the major objective, sir. Take control
Yeah,
of the Black Sea. He wanted
that's it.
Donbass. He's got Donbass in his hands. Probably a month's battle more, and Donbass will be done. You know,
Donbass is fine, but I must have more than Donbass to bargain.
bargain.
Itna to I have. This is the minimum that I want. This is the minimum I want. Donbass though is my aim. I mean, I that's Russia, man. That's my territory. I want more than that for a bargain. So it's not ending soon.
Yeah,
Is my prediction, and it's going to the sea battle will assume more importance.
air
Air
battle.
battle, air will wait a little till all the air defense is suppressed. And incidentally, what happens is the intelligence community, the strategic intelligence, they would be trust me, both sides. No, I'm not talking one side. I'm talking both sides. They would not exactly know what is the production capability. The West would know what is the production capability of the Russians, what is their stock, uh, present stock holding, and similarly, the Russians would know as to what is the production status of all the various factories. So that is where the strategic intelligence comes into play, and what our collaboration is taking place. So both sides know actually as to what your intent is. Yeah.
This has been amazing, sir. This is, I think, one of the most analytical episodes we've done where we've covered the whole scenario. Uh, in terms of we've gone around the whole circle from Zelensky to Zelensky to the west to the east to the travels to the battleground, covered everything, and also took a flight in the F-16, if I may. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
No, let's see as to what happens. Is F-16s a game changer? No. Coming soon? No. Uh, Effective? Perhaps whenever it comes. When it comes, mystery remains. So a lot of ifs
It's
and
not
buts.
that it's not that the F-16s can keep flying all the time over every place. It's not going to happen. So probably
Not
cover certain locations and this and that.
see the air also has to get distributed for various tasks. These are multi-role aircraft, fine, but there are, you know, the entire front has to be covered.
Yeah.
Then there are various categories of operations they must do, and how experienced they are.
Sir, thank you so much. Fantastic. A lot of people are saying, sir, thank you, thank you, thank you. There's so many comments saying thank you for that. Thank you so much for an analytical journey through Ukraine. It's always a pleasure hearing your perceptive, and I must say, very perceptive analysis, which I guess someone around there is also listening to. Because when I look at, and this is again, guys, I want to say this: we've said something here. 2 days later, the a lot of the analysts start talking about it, and from the West. So it's really, really interesting that we've been actually, sir has been one step ahead. Thank you so much, sir, for
You're
spending the time
welcome.
to research and joining me on the show. Till next time, Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great time. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Good night.